about 4 or 5 years ago, I went to see a buddy of mine play a country music show, and I was backstage drinking some Jack Daniels, and another buddy of mine walked over to me and handed me his cell phone. His name is John Peets. And he said, I need you to go in that room over there where it's quiet, and I need you to listen to this. And I need you to come back and tell me what you think. And it was Dahlonega. And I was in that room for about half the show. I missed about half my buddy's show because I was listening, like just diagnosing what you're saying. It's one of the baddest ass opening verses, opening stanzas you'll ever hear. There's so much depth to it. There's so many cool turns on phrases that you have in there. It's brilliant. So I imagine that song changed your life. Like, how did that song impact your life?
Well, and at first it was just us bitching. Because I wasn't feeling great that day, and I was going to write with Nicolette Hayford, who you'll hear her name a lot. And we were going to write with this other guy that we had never written with, and he was like 2.5 hours late. So we were just complaining. And when he walked in, he said, y'all, girls, I'm so sorry. I dropped my phone in the toilet last night at the bar. And I wasn't going in after it. I said, I wouldn't go in after a toddler in a toilet at a bar. You'll be fine. And so he was just talking about what a bad night he had had. Well, Nicolette's heart was broken at the time. And I was not feeling well. I hadn't even earned it. It wasn't even like a hangover. And so we were just kind of complaining. And Jesse, the guy that was 2.5 hours late, wound up telling us about the worst day he had ever had. And his car broke down outside of Atlanta, and he wound up in freaking Dahlonega, Georgia. And I'm like, that sounds hard to spell. Let's write that down. Nothing rhymes with that. That's a great word. Mm-hmm. And he was waiting, I guess, there for a buddy to come pick him up. And Sean Mullins was playing a show.
No way.
In the Crimson Moon. So he stayed, and he met the pretty little blonde girl that night. And they've been, I don't know how many years it was after that they got married, but that was where he met his wife. So that whole day changed my life because we were just complaining about what a crappy day Nicolette had and what a crappy day I had had and what a crappy night he had had. And then we're like, actually, when things are going that bad, it's our job to make the best of that anyway. So we really were making the best of the worst, and it just happened to stay in the song.
It's brilliant. So how did it change your life?
That was our very first song to go to country radio. And so that was the first time I ever heard my voice come through my truck speakers that wasn't a CD that I had burnt of myself.
What's that moment like when you hear that?
We were at, shocker, we were at a bar. And actually me, Nicolette, and Jesse were all at this bar together. And they said, you're about to be on the radio. They just said it. So we ran to my truck. And I videoed it, and we all kind of teared up. We're all kind of doing this thing, like where you wave your hands in front of your face, like that somehow stops you from crying.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that does, but we all do it, right?
We all do it. Yeah, it's like, I'm just too warm. That's the problem. So that is life-changing. And so you kind of say, it's not really like well, I made it kind of a thing. It's just more like here we go. This is the part of the roller coaster where they take your picture right before everything starts to go really fast.
That's Splash Mountain. What did you know about Dahlonega? I'm from Georgia. We've spoken about Dahlonega a few times on this podcast, referencing your song and not referencing your song. What did you know about Dahlonega when you recorded it? And what do you know about Dahlonega now? How much have you learned about the town because of this song?
So I knew when he said he had stopped at this place called the Crimson Moon, and I said, oh man, a little dive bar in Dahlonega, that is so rhythmically pleasing. A little dive bar in Dahlonega. Now I got to know everything I can know about it. Mm-hmm. So that was my very first time hearing about that town. And I had opened for Winona just outside of Dahlonega, just like, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 minutes outside, but I hadn't gotten to go. So after that, I made sure that we got to go. And we wound up playing a couple shows there too, in some vineyards. And then I come to find out there's vineyards. And then I find out that Dahlonega, Georgia was the location of the very first gold rush in the United States. And that's why people were called. People would come to the shows and yell, I'm a nugget. And I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, that's right. That's the name. That's the name of the newspaper.
And you know me, I'm like, you sure are, you sweetheart. But then I figured it out. Oh, that's the location of the very first gold rush in the United States.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you are walking, talking the real Dahlonega deal, and that makes my heart happy as a Georgia guy.
Thank you. And I've been to the Crimson Moon. I stayed one night, stayed an extra night after a show, and played at the Crimson Moon. to make sure that I had everything authentic could happen. And now we have a menu item at the Crimson Moon.
What's it called?
A little dive burger.
Oh,
Right? I've never had
What's
that
your
before.
royalty check look like, Ashley?
Yeah, I don't
from
know.
the little dive burger.
Yeah, maybe it's just the free fries. I don't know.
is it like a slider? Is it a
I
little
haven't. I've
burger,
seen it
like,
on the menu, but I've
physically, or-
never, since they put that on the menu, I haven't been there to have it. But that was a really cool thing. Also, the owner was like, "I wouldn't call this a dive bar," and I was like, "Well, you're thinking dive bar in a bad way. Dive bar means the beer is cold, the drinks aren't too expensive, and the hamburgers are great."